Today, we will be discussing about cross-cultural understanding towards India and Philippines. And we will be using Hofstede cultural dimension about power distance. As you can see, the dimensions between India and Philippines are 77 and 94, which it extends to the less power members of institutions and organizations. Within a country, expect and accept that the power is distributed unequally. Example of power distance is caste system. Hinduism is not only the principal religion in India, but its philosophy dominates in entire culture and relationships by believing birth is destiny, which perpetuates the caste system. And caste system have four divisions: priests, warriors, traders, and workers. Separate social classes by occupations, so that the privileges or disadvantages are transmitted by inheritance. Also, India is a political democracy. Notions of complete equality are seldom evident in daily lives. Another example ng power distance in a business, about Silit Kumar, an Indian business analyst who said that in our company, a rule is set by decision makers and we will follow it submissively. Sa pagitan ng staff and manager ay sunod-sunuran ng staff sa boss na walang free na magkameron ng sarili desisyon ng staff. Kaya dapat talagang sundin ng rules kaya walang equalities. In the Philippines, in terms of work, employers tends to teamwork and commitments ng staff and manager. Sa respeto naman sa family, dapat mataas ang respeto sa mga nakakatanda at dapat sabay-sabay kumain sa hapagkainan. In the Philippines, political dynasty is one of the things that shows there is an equal distribution of power, and our country embracing this and accept that the power and authority is given to a specific line. In education, just like when COVID-19 hits, inequalities, sa lahat ng mga estudyante hindi kayang i-afford ang pag-enroll because they are lack of education material, especially stable internet for online classes. We can see here the gap between wealthy and poor family.
Hofstede, main Chalika Franco. And now I will be discussing the comparison between the individualism of the Philippines and India. And based on the Hofstede result, India got 48. It means they are between of individualism and collectivism, meaning to say they have some traits of being individualistic and some of being collectivistic. And for example of this is rebirth. The individualist aspect of Indian society is seen as a result of its dominant religion or philosophy, Hinduism. They believe on the cycle of death and rebirth, or the popularly known as reincarnation. This cycle of reincarnation is called samsara, with the manner of each rebirth being dependent upon how the individual lived the preceding life. People are therefore individually responsible for the way they live their lives and the impact it will have upon the rebirth. Kaya naman kailangan nilang gumawa ng good deeds individually habang sila ay nabubuhay pa para pag nag-reincarnate sila is maganda pa din yung buhay nila. Another example is value for family, decision making, and marriage. The interests of the family usually take priority over those of the individual, and decisions affecting one's personal life such as marriage and career paths are generally made in consultation with one's family. Meaning to say, yung mga life decision nila is need i-consult to the whole family before they commit final decision. Dahil nga they value independence and loyalty. Uso din sa kanila yung arranged marriage, whereas mismo yung parents ang mag-decide kung sino yung makapangasawa ng anak nila. And yung anak is they submissively follow because they know that they value family. In many parts of India, it is common to find 3 or 4 generations living together. So, isa din sa nagpapakita ng pagiging collectivistic nila is yung katulad ng Pilipinas, na kahit kasaling mga anak, magkakasama pa rin sila sa isang bahay. That's how they value family ties. And the Philippines got 32 results based on Hofstede. The result shows that Philippines is obviously collectivistic society. We value loyalty and group accomplishments rather than individuality, and it is visible in our culture and way of thinking. And the example of this is value for group ties. We Filipinos value family ties, just like India. We also embrace the culture of joint family because we think that we are responsible for each other's life, na kahit may sarili ng pamilya, hindi pa rin bumubukod kasi we think that our parents should be on us, and sometimes our grandparents and other extended family, where the mindset is to be together and no one should be left behind. And other example is Bayanihan spirit. This particular culture is one of the best examples that we are a collectivistic country, where we always consider not just ourselves but also other people in the community. And other example is group activity. Even in school or in your workplace, di ba mas gusto natin mga estudyante at employee na yung activity is by group palagi kasi we want to work collectively or to achieve goals together.
Hofstede main Raquel, Linao. Now, I'll be talking about the masculinity between India and Philippines. So for the reference, India and Philippines resulted as both masculine country, which scored 56 and 64%. And I have here examples for both country, which represents masculinity. Indians' preference for son. Due to their belief that men are more powerful and is more dominant, mas prefer nila na magkaroon ng anak na lalaki kasi for them, they are the successor of their names and sila yung magko-continue ng legacy ng pamilya and kung ano man yung nasimulan nito. They also believe that women are just a second class. Hindi nila ganoong binibigyan ng pansin yung mga opinyon ng kababaihan and hindi rin sila nabibigyan ng chance to prove themselves na they can also do those things and that having a daughter is also an honor and could also bring forth success equally on what men does. Naniniwala din sila na mas may care yung anak na lalaki at may possibility na alagaan sila nito kapag tumanda na sila kesa kung yung babae yung magiging anak nila. The next example is social roles. So for Indians, social roles between men and women are clearly different. They believe that men are the ones who should be working, lumalabas para makipag-socialize, and nag-establish ng power and dominance over women. Para sa kanila, ang mga kababaihan ay para lang sa loob ng mga tahanan. Nag-aalaga ng buong pamilya, they are not also required to work since in their culture, pinaniniwalaan na ang babae ay hindi dapat nagtatrabaho because men are the head of the family. This is very similar with the Philippines' belief in terms of social roles. Meron silang pagkakapareho. Their score in masculinity is not that far from each other. For example, kumbaga sa pamilya, di ba mapapansin naman natin na kapag nagpapaalam tayo sa mga tatay natin, nasa kanila yung huling salita. Kapag hindi sila pumayag, meaning hindi na pwedeng tumuloy kahit pag nagpinayagan tayo ng nanay natin. See, dun pa lang nakikita na natin yung dominance nila. Sila yung mas may power sa loob ng bahay and mas nagmamatter yung opinion nila. Ang example naman ng masculinity sa Pilipinas ay sa politics. It is clearly seen here that men are more powerful and being favored lalo na sa politika. Kita-kita naman sa ating sistema tulad na lang sa Senado na mas karamihan ay ang bilang nito ay lalaki kaysa sa babae. Naniniwala yung mga mamamayan na mas may kakayanan daw ang mga lalaki na mamuno kaysa sa mga babae. Makikita natin ito sa mga nagdaang presidente, hindi ba't majority ng mga ito ay lalaki. Another example of this is nitong nagdaang eleksyon between Marcos and Robredo. Si Marcos yung na-elect as president due to his name and because most of the people believe that he could do more for the Philippines, kagaya na lang ng nagawa ng tatay niya noong panahon ni Marcos, because he is a man also of power and they already established a strong name. Another example of masculinity in the Philippines ay job qualifications or yung workplace. Here in the Philippines, I know na most of us mag-a-agree na kalimitan talaga ng mga tinatanggap sa trabaho are more likely men, especially dun sa mga kailangan ng physical attributes. And even hindi naman siya kailangan, mas prefer talaga ng mga fast food chains, restaurants, and other establishment na lalaki ang i-hire kasi they believe that men are more productive and less hassle, which is very wrong. Since lahat ng kayang gawin ng lalaki is kayang gawin na rin ng mga babae ngayon. So example nun is yung Nanay si Meng's Halo-Halo Restaurant. Hinahire lang nila is yung mga lalaki as part of their crew. So another example of this is sa mga aircraft. Di ba most ng mga piloto is lalaki dito sa Pilipinas? Wala kang makikita dito na piloto or madalang yung makikita mong piloto na mga babae.
Hardin Shukhu, main Carla Raquel. Now I will be discussing the uncertainty avoidance of India. In terms of this dimension, it shows that 30% India has low or medium preference upon avoiding uncertainty, meaning to say imperfection is much accepted. It means that they live like go with the flow, like hindi sila nababother na hindi mangyari yung mga nakaplano. For your further understanding, I have some examples. The example is the health carelessness. Based on our readings, more than 90% of India's population lives in areas where air quality is below World Health Organization standards. It is due to their massive industrial population. Hindi nila iniisip yung mga pwedeng mas malalang mangyari if this population continues. The next example is carelessness in terms of home safety. A survey within 8 cities of India by Coach-led Security Solution shows that 68% admitted that their lift is under mat, which result to high percentage of thieves. Sinasabi din dito na kadalasan na iiwan or nami-misplace niya yung mga car keys and wallets nila at napapaglaanan nila ito ng oras within 45 to 60 minutes every week just to seek for their misplaced na gamit. With this example, makikita natin na ang mga Indiano pala ay mayroong ganitong characteristics na kung saan sobrang careless nila.
Namaste, Abigail Pasia here. I will be the one to discuss the uncertainty avoidance level of the Philippines. The Philippines score on this dimension shows 44, which is low preference for avoiding uncertainty. Meaning to say, they have a more relaxed attitude. Just like India, we also don't take future as threatening. We are more likely to be a risk taker. For example, here in business industry in the Philippines. Filipinos are known by being a risk-taker on putting up a business. Filipinos are known by being a risk-taker on putting up a business even though without a stable business plan, especially during the surge of COVID-19 pandemic. So napakadaming nagbukas ng mga negosyo, small or big business during pandemic. Yung iba is patuloy pa rin yung operation hanggang ngayon, pero karamihan is wala na or nalugi na. Kasi nga, we don't plan it very well. We just take the risk, hindi natin tinitingnan yung mga side na pwede nating may avoid or pwede nating may prevent. So another example I can give is the Filipino type. It is our well-known but undesirable traits. So isa ito sa mga kilalang traits natin, yung pagiging late. It seems like we don't care to avoid the things that may come if we came late or if we done things late. With that, yung mindset natin mga Pinoy is hindi palaging kailangan maging perfect kasi meron namang second chance. So hindi tayo para natetreten kung maliit man tayo or kung ano man yung mangyari sa future.
Namaste, Apkadinship ho, my name is Martinez, and I'll be talking about the long-term orientation in India. So based on the result with an intermediate score of 51 in this dimension, a dominant preference in Indian culture is hard to determine. Pero based on our research and observation, ang culture nila is more on pragmatic than normative. So we cite some examples for you to further understand. As being a pragmatic country, reducing social injustice in India is one of the long-term Indian goal for reality change. First is to reduce unemployment and poverty. So after the completion of the 95-year plan, about 26 crore people are still living below poverty line. So the objective of the 10th plan is to reduce poverty ratio by 5% points by 2007 and by 12% points by 2012. Also, the target of the 10th plan is to create 5 crore additional employment opportunities within a period of 5 years. Next is to provide education. So education for all scheme launched by the government aiming to provide free education to such children. And education to girl child has been given special preference. And special attention has been given to professional and technical education in country by opening various management, engineering, and medical colleges in the country. Next is for the development of women and children. The Department of Women and Child Development was set up in 1985 for formulation and implementation of schemes for development of women and children. So the protection to women starts at domestic level, for which Domestic Violence Bill 2002 has been introduced in Parliament. Another major problem Indian women faces is the dowry system of India. And to protect women from evils of dowry system, Anti-Dowry Act has been framed by the government according to which demanding dowry or even giving dowry is considered illegal. And to make women aware of their rights to protect them against social evils and for the development of women, a national policy for empowerment of women 2001 has been framed. While for the benefit and welfare of children, primary education has been made free in rural areas for the poor children. And also, child labor has been banned for children below the age of 14 years old, and the Integrated Child Development Scheme, or ICDS, has also been launched by the government for providing nutrition, health checkup, immunization, and education to children in villages. And the last one is to reduce child labor. So as a result of imposition of ban by the government on children working below the age of 14 years, the number of children working below 14 years came down from 6% to 3.59%. And there's a lot more movement, programs, projects, mga batas ang ginawa ng government ng India para ma-reduce ang social injustice sa kanilang bansa.
On the other hand, a very low score of 27 indicates that the Philippines are more normative than pragmatic. It means tulad nung na-discuss natin before or earlier, we Filipinos values tradition and culture and we don't care for our future so much. With that being said, it shows na nagfo-focus tayo sa mga short-term goals. So, meron din ako dito ilan pang example na nagpapakita that we have a normative culture. First, Filipino being religious but also being superstitious. So, you'll also see a mixture of native Filipinos beliefs, Chinese feng shui, and a tiny bit of leftover Spanish superstitions. Notice that Filipinos try to follow what feng shui experts say. Halimbawa, during New Year, sinasabi na mas swerte daw or mas maraming blessings na dadating if we wear some polka dots t-shirt or anything that have a dots. And let's not forget about the kulam, diba? Many cultures still believes that going to an albularyo will help them more than visiting a doctor. So these superstitious beliefs bleed into how we practice religion. we believe that whipping a towel on a black Nazarene or itim na Nazareno and using the towel on ourselves or ipupuna sa mga taong may sakit, it will somehow heal the illness. Next, we also have believing that one's child or children is the answer to prosperity. So, meron dito sa bansa natin, meron tayong paniniwala na yung mga anak natin is parang investment. Nagiging investment siya. So, the more daw na maraming anak, the more na mas malaki yung chance na yumaman yung magulang. So, many uneducated Filipino like to think that having children is somehow equal to making an investment. Parang, yun nga, sabi ko, nagiging investment ng mga magulang yung anak nila. And that trait is not very amusing. Of course, next we have grab mentality. You've heard of chismoso or chismosa. Or ngayon, mas kilala na sila bilang mga marites. So, every neighborhood, workplace, or school, or even in organization, palaging merong mga chismoso or chismosa. So, chismoso and chismosa are the worst and most popular example of Filipinos with a crab mentality. However, there are many more of them that they aren't necessarily a chismoso or a chismosa. They can be a backstabbing or a backstabbing friend. They can be a example, DDS, who won't stand for progressive change because they're too fascinated on their political beliefs.
Hoy, ate! Oo, ba't ganyan na suot?
Ay, ikaw naman! Ago, tunay! Bakit naman yung kanya pasuot niyan? Ano ba yan?
Upcoming main Roasa. Now, I will be discuss the difference of India and Philippines based on Hofstedes in terms of indulgence. This dimension is defined as the extent to which people try to control their desires and impulses. Based on the way they were raised, relatively weak control is called indulgence, and relatively strong is called restraint. So, India is a restrained country with a low score of 26% because they have no freedom, especially when it comes to their clothes. My example here is about their dress code. In their country, women should wear conservative dresses or trouser suits. Clothing should not reveal too much skin, especially their legs.
Isa pang example dito ay ang mga OFW or ang dayuhan sa kanilang bansa ay kinakailangan din na magsuot ng sari dress kapag sila ay lalabas or magmamall.
With a low score of 42, the culture of the Philippines is also one of the restrained country. Societies with a low score of in this dimension have a tendency to cynicism and pessimism. Ang pessimism ay ito yung the way of thinking. Kumbaga, iniisip mo yung sasabihin ng ibang tao or judgment nila na ibabato sa'yo kaya hindi mo nagagawa yung mga gusto mo or gustong isuot.
Gaya nga dito sa Philippines, hindi natin masuot yung mga gusto nating damit na like revealing clothes kasi nga iniisip natin kung ano yung sasabihin ng ibang tao paglabas ng bahay natin. Merong nagsasabi o naririnig natin na ay kinulang sa tela ng damit, ay mabubuntis agad ito, ay kaya ang daming naririnig kasi tingnan mo naman yung pananamit nila. Kaya ang Philippines ay naging restrained country because of being cynicism and pessimism.
Erica, uuna na ako, hindi ka ba sasama?
Hindi, may ginagawa pa ako eh.
Etong suot ko, okay lang ba? Hindi ba masyadong revealing?
Okay lang, saan ka ba pupunta?
May night out kasi kami.
Okay lang yan.
Nakakahiya kasi baka mamaya ko anong isipin ng iba eh.
Hindi, night out naman yun. Okay lang yan.
Sure
Maganda
ka?
nga eh. Hindi, maganda. Okay lang yan.